Hello there. Here's an update for Marduk, the giant robot. I've started taking a look at the legs, and I figure since they're built to compensate for the way the lower part of the frame bows out a bit, you can see that it kind of starts separate in front and then kind of goes backwards in a V. So it's sort of like a trapezoid shape. And since these legs are built to counter that action in their current configuration, I figure I can switch the left and the right leg around and it should give a wider base. Pretty much going back to the original configuration I had in the other full system test video before I had the hip and rotation bit. So, in preparation for taking off the legs, I built a sawhorse out of some cheap pine 2x4s, and hopefully that will hold it up while I swap the legs around. And of course, probably once I'm done swapping the legs around, I'll have to fiddle around with the steering knuckles, you know, just make sure that they don't fall into each other, that sort of thing. And of course, do something about the posts that go down to the parking brakes. As you can see, these are connected with a Bowden cable with a little nubbin welded onto the end of the wire right to the chassis, so I'll probably have to disconnect these sort of struts all the way down at the brake arm, and that will hopefully allow for them to be switched. Okay, so I got the leg detached, and there it is right there. And when I was taking the bolts out of their holes, I noticed something a little strange. The bolts are starting to bend. Now these are just a simple 3/4 inch I forget the name of that head, but lag bolt, something like that, but you know, it like digs into the side of the wood anchored. But anyway, you can see it's kind of bent, so I'm going to be upgrading to a 3/8 inch bolt, which I have in the garage at the moment, but it will be a little bit thicker than this and should not bend as easily. Well, you can see both the legs are off and it's looking a little precarious on that little itty bitty sawhorse there. Looks like it's got wearing some skinny jeans on its little legs, but now that I have moved the leg pylons into their new positions, in other words swapped the left with the right, we can now just slide them back up in there and hopefully bolt them more or less into the same mounting holes with the 1/4 inch lag bolts. That is only in temporary measure until I get some nice 3/8 inch ones to put in there instead. That way they don't get all bendy like you know, this one. Because bendy bolts in a structure is not exactly a good sign. Now, you might be wondering why I'm not filming all the progress and stuff, and that is because, well, that's a good 100 or so pounds of giant robot, and if I recorded it falling down on top of me, it would not make for very good viewing. So, I'll be back in a moment when I have the legs, hopefully back in, and I won't need to drill any new holes. You can see that darkness has fallen. And also my cordless drill ran out of battery juice, so I had to get my corded drill and run an extension cord out. So that was a bit of fun. And the bolts should be good enough to hold it in place in addition to the sawhorse underneath until I get the probably about 6 or 8 3/8 inch bolts to replace these 1/4 inch. And now you can see these ones are pretty thin. These are the 1/4 inch, and this right here is a 3/8 inch. So you can see, just comparing the, let's step into the light, size, there's a lot more strength in these 3/8 inch bolts, but I also got to get them in the longer length. This one is actually to replace one of the bolts on the clutch pedal, which is inside, which I haven't gotten around to yet. But the legs seem to look at least a little bit wider of a stance, and there's a bit more space in between the legs. But unfortunately, the way I have things positioned right now, the right leg is a little bit further forward than the left leg. I don't know how that happened. Or at least that's how the wheels might work. Either that, it's just the mech sitting cockeyed. But in either case, there will be some fine adjustments need to be done on that, which will be done when I get more of these guys, but longer. And then I can hook everything back up and put in a little steering indicator, lube up some things, secure other things, and I don't know if you heard that, just heard a coyote across the valley, but whatever. And then we'll be ready for another test. And now, since it's dark, I'm gonna go inside, have some dinner. So, be sure to like and subscribe, and until next time, bye-bye.